Hello, everyone, and welcome back to One Soccer. I'm your host for today, Josh Deming, joined by my colleague Alex Gongay-Ruzik, and a very special guest for today. Very excited to have him on. You may have seen Soheil while scrolling through TikTok, but his story is one we're really fascinated by. He's an Ottawa-based footballer who documented his rise from amateur to professional football on social media, setting out and successfully signing a pro contract while filming every step of the way. He's amassed a huge following on TikTok with over 1 million followers who have cheered him on and supported his journey from the very start. And now he is setting the bar even higher as he looks to create his own football club in Dubai, Al Qabila FC. Soheil, I appreciate the time. How are you today?
I'm doing great, guys. I'm super excited to be on the podcast. Thanks for having me.
Some who follow you may know this, some may not, but from the research I did, you grew up in Ottawa. You went to Carleton as well as University of Ottawa, if I got that correct. So can you just give me a little bit about your background story growing up in Canada?
Yeah, for sure. So I was actually born in Austria, but then when I was a kid, we moved to Canada. So first coming to Canada, my parents, I'm Persian, so very academic heavy. So it was very like focused on school. Soccer didn't matter much. But then I came to Canada, I had to learn English and French at the same time, immerse myself into the culture. And then I remember at around 12 or 13, I started playing recreational soccer. It was just once a week. You've got like the watermelon slices, nothing serious at all. And then 2 years after that, at middle school, our soccer tryouts, one of my friends was like, hey, we need a player on our competitive soccer team. It was L5, West Ottawa Soccer at the time. That was classified like the lowest level of competitive amateur soccer. And I went out to the tryouts and I made it. And that's kind of where the soccer journey started in Canada. So over the next couple of years throughout high school, I just tried to work my way up. Early mornings, I'd go put in extra work. After school, I'd go do extra training. I never had connections. I never had a network. My parents weren't in the soccer space. So once the end of high school came about, it was, okay, what's next? I want to make the jump up, but I didn't know what step was next. So the next reasonable thing was going to university, just to keep my parents happy with the academic side of things. So I went to Carleton University. I played on the soccer team there, studied biomedical sciences, worked really hard to get into that team. But then unfortunately, or I'll say fortunately, because that happened and then everything happened in the last couple of years, I got cut from the team a day before year two started. And that was after so many hours and hours of putting in extra training. So it was actually quite tough. I was very down for about 8 months, but then that opened up the door to then starting to go abroad and trying to make the soccer journey happen. But back to Canada, it was basically Carleton University, then transferred to U Ottawa when I got cut and finished that degree 2 years ago. So yeah, now Canada's still my home. My family's out there and we're coming to Toronto to do a showcase, coming to Canada to scout players. But now in the last year and a half, I've moved out to Dubai. I signed a gig here to play football and we're currently building the pro football club out here in Dubai.
Awesome. Sohail, great to have you on the show today. I'm kind of curious. Obviously, you've mentioned your strong connection to soccer. I'm curious to know where social media came into it all. When did you decide one day, let's give it a shot? Was it something where you're just like, let's just document this? Sometimes you do it almost for yourself, and then everything kind of comes from around it. When did you decide to get into it?
That's a good question. So high school hit, okay, and then like every kid, you're on YouTube watching different videos. I would watch the free kickers back then. There were a couple of soccer channels that were pretty popular, and I saw these guys and I thought, hey, this is kind of cool. Like I want to try making videos. So I remember I asked my mom for the cheapest camcorder at Costco, and after many, many weeks of trying to convince her, she got it. And after school, instead of playing video games or doing other things, I would just go to the football field and set up a tripod and put the camcorder on and start making videos. So it all started out of fun, and it was a passion of making content, making videos that hopefully other people would enjoy. So if you go way back to my YouTube channel, like 10 years ago, you'll see trick shot videos and free kick videos and tutorials. But then university eventually hit and school picked up. So I took a break for a year, took a break for a couple months, didn't take it too serious. 2021 was when it got really serious, because after 7, 8 years of really going at this journey of trying to sign a pro contract, I've traveled to like many, many different countries. I got cut from so many different teams, so much sacrifice, and I still wasn't able to achieve it. So on the first day of 2021, I picked up my phone and I put out a challenge. It was 365 days to trying to sign a pro football contract. And I had two reasons behind it. Like you said, like sometimes you do it for yourself. One was self accountability. I knew if I put it out there, I'm now accountable to myself and to the world to achieve this big dream and this big goal that I've always had. And then the second reason was to inspire and educate people watching. So the inspirational piece was, it's not about where you are currently, it's about where you want to get to and how hard you're willing to work to get there. So I want to show that with my content. And the educational side of it was, there's so much behind the scenes that happens in soccer that we're not aware of when we're young. We just see the superstars and we think everything's amazing. But it's not like that, especially if you're trying to work your way up in professional soccer. So I started showcasing some of those failures, those setbacks, when I would get scammed, when things didn't work out. And because I was so authentic with the journey, it really resonated with people. And the engagement was through the roof because I would share those low moments with people and also educate them along the way. And that's where the social media started from. And then the last couple of years, it's just picked up. And now I've got a beautiful community of over 1 million people who are tuning in the content. And we're starting our biggest project yet, which we're in the works right now.
So I'm one of the billion that I followed you on TikTok, but like I mentioned to you before, I came in just after. I think the very first time I ever saw you on TikTok is when you actually signed your first contract, and I believe it said, I started my journey of trying to get 365 days to sign a pro contract. It took you about 1,000 ish.
A little bit under 1,000. If we really zoom out and we go to before I documented the journey, it's probably at like 3,000 days now.
Okay.
But from the official day that I started, it was about day 630, around that mark is when I achieved the goal.
So I guess during the journey, I'm assuming, how big content creator will look back at a moment that, lifted their channel. Now, I joined you when you had a ton of followers. Was that 365 days? Was that the moment where you started really getting traction? You kind of mentioned it, and whereabouts maybe during that journey? Was it like 100 days in? Was it right away? Was it towards the end? Whereabout did you notice like, okay, something real is happening here?
So the start was something different because nobody's really done something like that, especially on a platform like TikTok where it was short format content. So in my first couple of weeks of doing it, I started to pick up some traffic, but I was in Canada, lockdown, COVID. I had a chronic groin injury, no opportunity. So it was a little bit stale. It wasn't until the summer when an opportunity came to go to Spain where it really picked up because now you're traveling. I booked a one-way ticket to go to Spain. I was at the showcase. They're only picking 3 players, and I was documenting this whole experience with everybody watching. So when I was in Spain showcasing that, that's when the first big jump came. And then after that, I had a chance to trial with the Rayo Vallecano B team. And I remember we were training beside the first team. They had Falcao at the time. And then that turned out to be a scam opportunity. Things didn't go according to plan. Again, documented that. I was really authentic with people. And again, it spiked. And then the next big thing was probably when a really big low hit around the end of year 1, when I decided, okay, Spain is not going to be the environment where I can make that jump up. Let's look elsewhere. And then Dubai came about, but the Dubai opportunity actually got postponed because of a really bad family health situation that occurred. So just the nature of TikTok and, sometimes it's so opinionated and judgmental, that just created this heavy traffic where it was the first time, to be honest with you guys, where it wasn't major positive feedback. It was like a lot of hate and a lot of negativity, and that was a really difficult time. But it created another spike, and I pushed through it. I decided to, stay mentally strong, push through that, and then that took me to Germany and Austria and eventually back to Dubai, where I managed to sign the contract. So there's been moments and peaks, but I would say the first big one was that trip out to Spain.
Kind of speaking of the Dubai and when you did sign that first pro contract, I'm just curious, A, how did it feel? And B, how rewarding of a feeling is it when you set out a goal, no matter how tough it may be, such as sign a pro contract? What does it feel like when you're sitting down signing said pro contract?
It felt really fulfilling. I think that's a good way to describe it. It's crazy because those days were so hectic. I got my first speaking opportunity at the World Football Summit at the time. And I was able to take 2 days. This was pre-committed a couple months ahead of time, so I didn't know I was going to sign at that time. But I was able to take 2 days to go and kind of travel to Spain and speak on stage for the first time. So I remember we were playing a friendly match in preseason against Al Nassr, which is the UAE Al Nassr, which it was a good performance. Then I went to the club office, I signed the deal, and the backstory behind that is quite cool because I came on as a closed invite trial player. And I remember I thought closed trial, that means like, okay, maybe like 15 players, 20 players are going to compete for a couple spots to join the first team in preseason. That first day, a wave of 100 players are coming at the football pitch, and they're all invite only players. So they've all played at quite high levels. And I played that week with an injured ankle. I didn't tell the audience because at that point there was so much pressure on the line of already being 600 days in, and I didn't want to say something that made it seem like, oh, this is the reason why it's not going to happen this time. I pushed through it. That first week I got through it. 6 more weeks of grinding, players coming in, players getting cut. And then that final day before the transfer window ends, I was able to sign the contract. But then after the office, I hopped on the plane right away and I flew to Spain. So like everything happened so quick. It was a very fulfilling moment, but I didn't quite get to sit in it for too long. I think what made it a lot more fulfilling is definitely the fact that I've decided to share it with so many people, and just all of those DMs that I've gotten in the last couple of months and years of people saying, hey, you sharing your journey has inspired me to not give up and to keep going and to keep pushing. And knowing that that effect kind of went out to a couple 100,000 people, that was really fulfilling.
Now, this is the question I'm probably most excited to ask you. Now, like you mentioned, you signed for your first pro contract. You went on to win the UAE third division. Then you mentioned for some reasons that you weren't able to continue with your club. So I'm curious, during that season where you went on and won the title, did you know that you were going to create Al Qabila during the season? Was it not until after you realized maybe you weren't going to continue on with your team that you decided to create it? Whereabouts in that year, or maybe year prior, did you decide that, all right, it's time to go on to make this project?
That's a good question. I did not know I was gonna do Al Qabila FC. I remember, so the team I was playing with, they got promoted from the UAE third to the UAE second division. I joined them in the UAE second division, so we won the UAE second division. And then when you get promoted, there's restriction on how many foreign players you can actually move up with. And our team had around 15, so a lot of the players had to be released. But some of the communication around that from the club's management was unprofessional, in my opinion. And then essentially this past summer, so summer of 2023, when I got those news, and then I was left with a limited time period to go and find a new club. And then I saw some of, the way other clubs were operating in the region. And then that also it sparked this frustration in my mind of, I've been going at this journey for 8, 9, 10 years, and I've seen so much of the behind the scenes in football. Players getting injured, the club doesn't care about them, players not getting paid on time, the lack of development in football players. Outside of football, they don't have anything else. So many things. I was just sitting down one day in August of 2023, this past summer, and I was frustrated. And it's quite interesting. I haven't shared this with anyone before, but before that day, the goal was, it was always going to be, okay, player, like it's my journey as a player. And I was talking with Daniel at the time, who is my business partner, and he's the one who helps me with my content. And at the time he was, and then our roadmap was, okay, how are we going to do this? You just played in this league, but now you're dropping down. It's not going to be as hype. So we got out the whiteboard, we created this whole storyline, and then we worked on that for 3 days. And then the next day I came to him and I said, hey, got this idea. I remember he got quite frustrated at first when I brought it up to him, but I told him the idea, and it connected with him, and our energies just went back and forth. And we said, hey, let's make this club happen. All the things we don't like about the industry, let's try our best to change them, and let's create a platform where we can genuinely put the players first and make them winners in life, regardless of what happens with their football. And that's where Al Qabila FC came from. So it was just all of the setbacks and the failures and the bullshit in football that I went through that really sparked the idea. And then now it's been 6, almost 7 months since Al Qabila FC has started. And then we've been documenting it now for the last 190 days. I think we're about to approach the 200-day mark.
I guess just a follow up on Al Qabila. I'm kind of curious, what are some of your big goals? And say, if you were to describe it to someone, what's the mission statement of the club, and how have you applied it in what you've done so far? You've hired some people, you've found some players, I assume, or And then lastly, you've also found some interesting sponsors. Like, how have you tried to apply that mission statement in everything that you guys do?
So the mission behind Al Qabila FC is massive. To recap, our goal is to become the most influential football club in the Middle East region that attracts the best talent and genuinely gives them the best possible development, not only in football, but in all elements of life, to create them into superstars. So then their marketing power increases 10x. And then also, they as players have the decision to go on and do whatever they want in life. So we really want to position our club in a way where it empowers our players. That is the big goal with Al Qabila FC. And one thing that makes it super unique out of the many things is because when I came up with the idea and the vision behind it, and then we've been developing it now over the last couple months, it all always filters from a player's perspective. So a lot of, probably all clubs around the world, their owners, their management is a lot of like older guys, and I'm sure they're all amazing guys, but they're not a player. So their only filter sometimes is just business, right? And it can be quite cutthroat. Whereas for me, it's really important to put the players first. And that's why I said, hey, I want to keep playing. So I don't want to just take my playing experience, but I want to keep playing so I understand what it's like to be a player. And now I'm training 4 or 5 times a week. I still play on the weekends just so I can actually relate to the player. So we decided to document it for 365 days just to play off of my journey of trying to sign a pro contract in 365 days. And the idea I had behind that was I knew this was going to be a massive project to pull off. I call it the magnet effect, and it's putting it out there, sharing it with the world, and documenting it and saying, hey, we've got this really cool idea. We want your help. Come and be part of this. And what's that done in the last 6 months is it's attracted all the right resources and tools to come and be part of this project to actually be able to pull it off. So a couple of more like specific examples of where we're trying to go to. We're progressing talks with the UAE FA to get our pro license. The plan is to start in the UAE third division, our first year promotion. We want back-to-back promotions. We're announcing our head coach in the next couple of days, which is very exciting. And yeah, the long-term vision is to become the most influential football club in the region.
Awesome. Well, last one for us, bit of a fun one. Of course, right now you're focused very hard on the launch of Al Qabila FC, and we'll be following along. But maybe down the road, maybe it'll be something, a branch off. Would you ever be interested in doing something in Canada? With the growing infrastructure here, and if so, where in Canada would you look to potentially have a mini Al Qabila FC or a brand new club altogether?
That is such a good question. So short term, what we're doing is we want to come to Canada and tap into talent and bring them to Dubai. So we're doing our first ever Toronto showcase with Final Third Soccer this upcoming weekend, which is going to be very exciting. But long term, our plan is to actually expand into different parts of the world. So we are planning to have a club somewhere in North America. Canada would be a cool spot for that. I know Montreal has been calling for a club. Quebec has been calling for a club. There's a couple of regions, and I've gone to Montreal. I've gone to different parts of Quebec City, and they've got some top talent. And I think we haven't given them the spotlight they deserve. I know there's a lot of great regions in Canada with top talent, but I think Quebec could be quite interesting to tap into that region there and see if we can create a club. And yeah, it would be really cool to make that happen sometime in the future.
You're going to make a lot of friends with that statement there in the Quebec area. But Soheil, that is all the time we have. Man, I really appreciate you coming on and giving us your time, and best of luck. I can't wait to hopefully see you this summer when we link up and potentially in like June.
Amazing, guys. Thanks for having me.